Alright, y'all waited long enough. I'm sorry. I had to eat dinner. I was hangry. Anyways, welcome back. And once again, thank you for trusting me with your full spoiler movie review. That thing I do where I watch movies and then I tell you all about them. As always, I am unpaid and unsponsored. And spoilers. Spoilers, all the spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, you can go ahead and scroll. Spoilers. Okay, here we go. This is The Black Phone 2. The sequel to Black Phone 1. Which, here's the thing, and I said this in my non-spoiler review. As a person who didn't like the first one, to me this was a solid ass upgrade. However, I feel like it's a solid ass upgrade because it's somebody else's story. What do I mean by that? I mean, this was a Nightmare on Elm Street. Legitimately. Like, we're fighting someone in the dream that can hurt you in real life. He was a real person who harmed kids, and then he died, and now he can attack you in dreams. That's literally Freddy Krueger. And how do you get rid of him? Well, you find out in your dreams you also have powers. Which is great, but as we learned in the Dream Warriors, you can be whatever you want. You could have just been a badass assassin. He had a tiny axe, you could have gotten a bigger axe, or a gun. But whatever. Anyways, what's this about? Picture it. Christian camp in northern Denver in the middle of fucking winter, 1952. A teenage girl goes to a payphone and dials a number. You can't hurt who's on the other side. But she's like, yeah, I've been having these dreams, and somebody keeps carving a number into snow, and it's a landline, so I'm also assuming this number goes to Denver. But yeah, anyways, I keep seeing boys in the snow or some shit. Okay, I gotta go by. Huh, that's weird. Anyway, cut to the early 80s. Mr. Finn is now beating up a new kid who ran his mouth for no reason. Gwen's got a super cool ass new haircut. And a little friend. His name is Ernesto, but she calls him Ernie. And I think he wants to date, and she's just like, ah. Anyways, on the way home, they're walking by, I think it's like a convenience store or something, and Finn hears a payphone ringing. I don't really know why he would pick that up. It's just a payphone. It even says out of order. But he picks it up anyway, and he's just like, sorry, I can't help you. And then later that night, we find out he's smoking weed to cope with the fact that he still sees Ethan Hawke everywhere. And it really fucks with him. Which, like, I totally get. If you survive getting kidnapped, you should be able to smoke a fatty every once in a while. She's seeing, like, young boys, like, rise to the surface on top of a frozen lake, and they're, like, carving letters into it. And then the next night, she has another dream where she rides her bike to the old house where, like, the first one happened, where Finney was being held captive, and the phone is ringing, and she picks up the phone, and she can hear the lady on the other end that was from 1952, and she's like, where are you? And she's like, I'm at this Christian camp. And obviously the girl from 1952 is now talking to Gwen in the 80s because, you know, like astral projection, clairvoyance and such. But Finn tracks her down and wakes her up from sleepwalking. And then the next day, Gwen's like, you know what we need to do? We need to go to this Christian camp in northern Denver, because they live in Denver, and find out what the fuck is going on. And he's all like, ew, why? And she's like, well, Mom went to this camp, and I think I talked to Mom last night. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? She's like, there's something up there and we need to solve it. And he's like, no. So Ernie agrees to go with her. And then Finn was like, that's my sister. I'm not leaving you alone with her. And so they go up into northern Denver in the winter, in a blizzard, to this camp. It's a Christian camp in the winter in northern Denver. Now, I've never been to Denver, but I need to know some logistics here. Number one, how exactly do you run a winter camp? Like, firstly, you got the holidays in there, and most people want to spend holidays with their families. If they're trying to fit that around school, if then you're in northern Denver where it fucking snows. So the logistics there of people getting up this mountain to get to the camp, and, you know, blizzards. So I don't understand I don't understand how it makes any money. Anyway, so they drive up there under the guise of, hey, we're going to pretend to be counselors in training. Well, they get up there, and obviously it's a blizzard, and nobody fucking else has made it up there. It's just them three, a man named Armando, his niece named Mustang, which is cool as shit. I'm really upset I didn't use Mustang as my stage name, but whatever. And then like a couple who are very I'm just gonna say it, they're judgy as shit. Well, anyway, there's a state law that says boys and girls can't sleep in the same cabins, so Gwen has to sleep in a cabin all alone, and Ernie and Finn are in a different cabin. Well, Gwen has this nightmare of 3 little boys all in horrific condition because they've been murdered and they're running around and they're scaring the shit out of her. Meanwhile, Finn found the phone booth from the phone call from 1952, and apparently it's out of order, but it won't stop fucking ringing until he answers. And surprise, it's the grabber, or Ethan Hawke. Anyway, he's being all aggravating as shit. He's like, yeah, I'm dead, but I can still fuck with you. Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, then Gwen wakes up from her nightmare and she goes and sleeps in the bed with Ernie. And then the next day, I don't remember what Finney was doing at the time, but they got separated. But Ernie and Gwen go to the main office where they meet the judgy couple, and they're like, hey, do you got any history here? And they're like, fuck no, we're a youth camp, not a historical society. And they're like, well, what about all these murders? You don't need to know about these murders. The fuck? Oh, meanwhile, while the blizzard sets in, their dad was all like, hey, we got snowed in too. But I'm going to call my job and see if I can get a snowplow truck so I can go rescue my children from this Christian camp in the mountains. Anyway, so he's doing that now. And then later on that night, Finn is out there smoking the purple sticky punch. And Mondo shows up. And they have a heart-to-heart about letting go of grief and not letting it scare you anymore. So we've got some elements of like coping with PTSD, which is interesting, and letting go. Shit, I just remembered before that. Finney was also talking to Armando earlier in the day with the rest of everybody else. And come to find out that back in the 50s, Armando, their mom, and this guy named Bill, who's also known as like Wild Bill Hickox or whatever, which is the initials of what was being scraped in the ice. Because it's him. Well, they all went to camp at the same... Well, they all worked at the camp at the same time. So what we know now is that the grabber started murdering there at the camp at the very beginning. And then later on down the road, he lived literally down the road from their mom, who, you know, has the clairvoyance that Gwen does. And then their paper boy got stolen and murdered by the grabber, and she had a vision of it one night, so she went all the way to the grabber's house to, like, look down and see if she can see the kid. And she got picked up by the grabber, who took her back to her house, murdered her, and staged it to look like I'm just gonna say a suicide. But anyways, yeah, later that night, Gwen sees the whole thing with her mom, where she's now fighting the grabber in her dream. This is where the whole Nightmare on Elm Street thing comes in, because he can pick her up and shake her, and like when he cuts her, it shows up on her like in real life. Ernie can't find her, so he grabs everybody and they go looking for her, and they find her in the kitchen where they see what all's going on. Everybody has to fight it. And then the grabber just kind of like skulks back into the shadows in her dream like he's on a fucking hoverboard or some shit. Like, it was just so smooth. But now that everyone has seen it because they think she has a demon, she has to explain everything and the fact that she knows it all. And Armando's like, hey, I've been looking for these kids for years and years and years. And Gwen's like, well, I think they're in a frozen lake. Do you know any frozen lakes around here? Meanwhile, the fucking lake is right there at the camp. You cannot miss it. If she walked out of her cabin, it was right there. What do you mean? Are there any lakes around here? Anyways, there's all that. And then Dad shows up in the snowplow, and she has to explain, hey, these dreams are doing their thing. And apparently they have to make him believe again that her dreams have meanings and whatnots, which I thought we covered in the first movie, but I guess not. Everybody goes out to the lake. They can't see anything. Well, they found one. And, like, it's just a skeleton at this point. It's, like, crammed in, like, it looks like a field. They pull that. Gwen falls asleep. She fights the grabber. She manages, like, in her dream to go down and start pulling the other fuel tanks up, so they found all 3 kids. And I think Armando helped, which, by the way, frostbite doesn't exist in this universe at all, apparently. She learns how to control her dreams, and then the ghosts of the boys, like, bring him back to hell. All is right with the world. Mom calls on the black phone from heaven and says it's a gift, it's not a curse. The end. Now, did I like it? It better than the first. I still think this was just a Nightmare on Elm Street. At least Ethan Hawke didn't just take a nap the whole time this time. So, 8 out of 10. Okay, bye.